I'm going to do one more style of video for you here, and just before we get started with that, I wanted to mention to you that I've done two other videos on Windows for beginners. There's the tutorial 1 and there's tutorial 2, and if you are a beginner, a reminder that I do have in my playlists a Blender beginner tutorials playlist. All right, so there's a bunch of things in there that are, relative beginner type stuff. I don't always explain as much as I'm going to here, but that's there for you. All right, so here I am over in Blender, and I've got the default scene there, and I'm going to get rid of all of this stuff. So I'm going to press A, and then I press X and delete. My screencast keys are on down here, so you can see what keys I'm pressing. So what I'm going to create in this video is a circular style sort of decorative window. So I'm going to press 1, and I'm going to look from the front orthographic view, so I'm looking straight on. There's nothing to see here except for the x-axis in red and the z-axis in blue. All right, so to do this, I'm going to press Shift-A, and that's going to bring up the Add menu, and I'm going to choose Mesh and click on Circle. Before I do anything else, I can come down here, open this little menu up, and you can see that the vertices are 32. I'm going to stick with 32, although you could go up if you want it even smoother, a smoother circle, but I'm going to stay with 32, which is already quite a bit. So I'm just going to click there to minimize that, and I'm rolling my mouse button up to zoom in. Now, this is my circle, but it's laying sort of on its side, and I'm in object mode. So I select it, and it's orange. I'm going to hit Tab to go into edit mode, and already you can see those dots. That's because I'm in vertex selection mode. I can switch to, there's edge and face. Well, there's no faces there right now. So I'm just going to press back onto vertex selection mode, or I can press number 1. Press A to select everything, and I'm going to rotate this. But just before I do that, I'm going to come up here, click here, and click on Move. Turn that on so my Move gizmo, the arrows, are visible. So I want to rotate this around the x-axis so that it's going to flip up and face us. So I'm going to press R, X, rotate at the X, 90. And there's my circle. If I press Alt-A, I deselect. So I want to use this top part of the circle to make the arch part of the window. So I'm going to press B for box select or border select and drag a rectangle over these bottom vertices, and now they're highlighted, and I can get rid of those. So I'm going to press X, and from the delete menu, I'm going to choose vertices. So I'm going to press A to select it, and now I'm only left with half a circle. I'm going to take this and pull this up a little ways, and then we're going to extend down. Alt-A to deselect. Now, I want to select this vertex, so I just click on it and then hold Shift, click on this one, and I want to extrude these downwards to make the rest of the window. So I'm going to press E, left click, and then using this Z arrow, this blue one, just pull down. And then I'm just doing this by eye. I'm going to come down to there and see what I think. Maybe a little bit longer to about there. I want to join these up so I can make a full sort of, outline, I guess. So I'm going to press F. That creates a face. I mean, it looks like it's just an edge or a line, but that's what they call it. So I've done that. Now I can select A to select everything. I'll just pull this up a little bit so it sort of rests on the X. And there's my arched window. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to fill this in, and I'm going to press F to make a face. With everything selected, I can press F, and now it's filled in like that. All right. We're actually going to create the window frame out of this, and to do that, I'm going to use the Inset function. I'm going to press I on my keyboard, I, and now you can see a dotted line and a cross. I'm going to pull my mouse in, and you can see what it's doing. You can hold Shift to move a little slower. So just decide how big you want your window frame. I'm just going to click to complete that. This area will be the window, although there'll be some other pieces of wood, and this will be the frame. So I want to delete this part and have a hole. So I'm going to press X, and I'm going to delete faces. I don't want to delete vertices, or I'll get rid of a lot. Control Z to undo. I'm just going to go X, faces. And now I have this. I'm holding the middle mouse button, and I can turn it around. All right, so that's going to be my frame. So I need to give this some thickness. So I'm going to press A to select everything. And I want to extrude this in the Y direction to give it some thickness. So I'm going to press E, left click, and then pull with the green arrow until I get something that I think is a reasonable thickness for my window. Okay, so this is what we have so far. Now, because this window would probably be in a wall somewhere, we're really not going to see the back of the window. And so if I press 3, that switches me to face selection up here. And all these polygons are face. You can see these are faces. I'm going to get rid of them or delete them. So I'm going to press X and choose faces because they won't be seen and we don't need them. All right. So let's now give this a little bit of more design. It's very flat. So I'm going to press 2 for edge selection. So this is edge selection. I can either click there or press 2. This is 1, 2, and 3. So 2. Shift Alt and click this inner edge there. That's right on the inside that goes around. Let's bevel that one. Control B, hold Shift and pull. That's more like it. I'm going to pull for a while. I don't want to pull until it overlaps like that. I'm just going to pull till I get an effect, maybe like that. And I'm deselect, go back into object mode to see. Okay, that's kind of an interesting shape. But if I shade smooth this, and you do that by going in object mode with it selected and right click, shade smooth, it looks very smooth. It's hard to see the details that we just created. So I'm going to go back into edit mode and I'm going to select the edges and make them more pronounced. 2 for edge selection, Shift Alt and click this edge, and then Shift Alt and click this edge, and then this edge. All 3 of those could be sharpened up. And the way we're going to do that is using bevel again. Control B, hold Shift, pull just a little bit. Now I've got 2 segments. If I roll my mouse up, I can put more. I'm going to try 2 and see how I like that. Just have them kind of close together. Click, go back into object mode. And now we can see that those edges are much more defined. That looks kind of cool. There's more that I can do with the shading if it looks a little funny. You may not know what you're looking at, but just watch what happens. Just get a sense for how this looks. I'm going to select it. I'm going to come over to the modifiers. And because I'm using an older version of Blender, my modifiers are not grouped the same way yours are if you're using Blender 4.2 or whatever. Just search for something called weighted normal. I'm going to click that. And then it also says down here, there's like a little warning. It says enable auto smooth in data properties. Come down here to this triangle, click that, scroll down to where it says normals, open that up, auto smooth, just click that and watch the object. See the way it changed a little bit? Now the shading is correct on that. All right, so there's our basic window frame. All right, and you can do any designs that you might want, but I'm going to stick with that. All right, the next thing that I need to do is to create some cross pieces here and a piece going down. So to do that, I'm going to press 1 to look from orthographic view, and I'm going to press Shift A, Mesh, Plane. I'm going to bring in a plane. A lot of people will use cubes, so I tend to use planes. I want to rotate this in the X 90 degrees, go into edit mode by pressing Tab, A to select everything, rotate X 90. There it is. That's too thick in the Z direction. I want to scale it in the Z, so I'm going to press SZ, bring my mouse towards the middle. And I want a piece about, we'll try that. I'm going to drag it up and find a position where it's not on the curve. You don't want it there. You want it on the straight region, somewhere there, because we're going to have something up here and something down there. I think I can make it a little narrower, SZ, something like this. And I can also scale it in the X. It's a little bit too wide, SX. Just do something like that, because what we're going to do is we're going to take it, we're going to pull it back into here along this flat region. So let's start with that. And now what I need to do is give this some thickness. So I'm going to press E to extrude, left click, pull it in, something like this. Just give it a little bit of thickness. Doesn't have to be too thick. We can start with that. You can always change things. Now, this face is not going to be seen. It's at the back. So let's delete that. X faces. And also, this one here, let's go to face selection by pressing 3. That one, and use your middle mouse button to turn it around. Hold shift and click that one. Those aren't going to be seen, and we don't need extra faces if they won't be seen. X faces. There. We only have what we need. I still think it's a little wide, so I'm going to press SZ a little bit more, just like that. All right, deselect. Now, I want to bevel this edge and this edge to give a design, and also just because it's too sharp. So press 2 to go back to edge selection so we can select this edge, click on it, then hold shift and click on that one. I'm going to press Control B to bevel, pull, and I want to do something like this. I want to design, imagine that's a piece of wood shaped kind of like that. I think that's going to look good. It'll kind of match this. But I think I'm going to bevel these edges again so that they stand out a bit more and are a little bit smoother even. So in edge selection number 2, I'm going to Shift Alt and click that one. Actually, I don't really need Shift and Alt. I just need, I'm so used to that when there's multiple edges, you use Shift and Alt. When there's just one long edge, you can just use Shift if you're adding it and just click. So Shift and click. So I just want those 4. I can't bevel an edge that doesn't have another polygon attached to it. I can't bevel this edge. Okay. Zoom in a little bit. Control B, hold Shift and pull. I just want to separate them a little bit more. Okay, so it looks like that. And that's what I'm going for. All right, now I have a piece that separates this into this arc part and this straight part, but I also want a central piece. So I'm going to go into edit mode and select it, and I'm going to duplicate this. Shift D and click. And now I want to rotate around the Y-axis. Okay, the duplicate is right there. In fact, I can move it away and you can see it. I'm going to rotate around the Y-axis. I'm going to press RY90. And now it's vertical. I'm going to take this and I'm going to pull it down here. And if I need to lengthen it, let's say it was there and I needed to lengthen down here, I could go into edge selection, Shift and Alt and click. Now I do have to Shift Alt and click, because if I just click, I only get a piece of it. But if I Shift Alt and click anywhere on the edge, I get the whole thing. Another way to select is to go into wireframe, Z, and then get this pie chart, choose wireframe, and now you can just box select. You can just drag a rectangle. I don't even need to press B. I'm just holding the left mouse button, dragging a box, and it'll select that edge. And I want to pull that down into this piece. Deselect, Z, go back into solid view, have a look at this. Now the only thing I don't like is how these join. They're at the exact same height, and they're also joined together. Now that's not really a problem. I mean, in other words, if I select, I get the whole thing. It looks like a T. If I want to select all the pieces of this object here in order to move it, I can select a little bit and press Control and L, which selects what is linked together, Control L. What I want to do now is I just want to move it back just a little bit like that. So now it looks like it goes inside. There's nothing else to delete, and that's fine. So we have the pieces that we need so far. That's looking great. So now we're going to do another design up top. What I'm going to do is I want an arch in the middle here so I can have some spokes coming out of it. So to do that, I'm going to choose some of this geometry that I already have and delete what I don't need. I just need one edge that goes all the way around. So I'm going to go into edit mode. 2 for edge selection, and I can choose any of these edges that go all the way around. So for example, if I Shift Alt and click on this, you can see the orange that goes all the way around. That's what I'm going to need. I'm going to scale that down. So with that done, I'm going to duplicate it, Shift D to duplicate, and S to scale it in. And you can see what it's doing here. I'm going to take that, and then I'm going to pull it down something like that. And let's press 1 for vertex selection. And you'll see that it's still part of this object. Let's break it out. With it selected, let's press P, separate by selection, go back into object mode. And now this is separate from this. It just makes it easier to work on. Tab to go into edit mode. B for box select, and grab these vertices, and I'm going to delete them. X vertices, and I'm left with this arch. I can pull it down a little more so that it's going to be embedded into this, and I'm holding the middle mouse button and we're looking at this. All right, to create an arch-like structure with thickness, I'm going to extrude back this way in the Y a little bit. So I'm going to press E to extrude, and I'm going to start pulling back and give it a little bit of thickness. The idea is I want it to be placed on top of here, so I don't want to make it that thick. I want to make it thin enough that it will fit on here. And again, we can always adjust this later. Now, there's one concern when I have done this. It's possible that some of my polys are not facing the right way. And you can't really tell at this point. So I'm going to come up here to the overlays, and I'm going to come down and click on face orientation. And you'll notice that it's red on the outside, blue on the inside. That's not a problem yet, but you'll also notice that this stuff is red, and that's facing the wrong way. So I'm going to press Tab to go back into object mode and leave this alone for a moment. Come over to this stuff, go into edit mode and select it all, and press Alt N, recalculate outside. Now it's blue. Let's just come over here, uncheck face orientation, and come back to this. Go into edit mode. All right, let's try this. 1 for front orthographic view. And I want to give this some thickness downwards now. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to press E to extrude. That creates new polys. And to move them, I'm going to press Alt S, and I'll hold Shift and pull either down or up. And in my case, I want to go up. And that's going to do this. Come to about there. So what I did is I extruded, I press E to extrude, that created new faces. And to move those faces out in the correct orientation, which is really along their normals, I used Alt S. All right, I'm going to do that again for you. I'm going to come back to here. I'm going to make sure I got no extra vertices. So I've got this. I'll do it from this angle so you can see it. E to extrude and left click. Now, to move them into the middle, essentially, Alt S, pull or push. Doesn't really matter which one. Give it a little bit of thickness so you think it looks good. Now I'm going to deselect. Now, once again, the backs are not going to be seen, and neither are the bottoms. So I'm going to press 3 for face selection. Select this poly, and hold Shift and select this one, X faces. And now I want to select all of these. So I can hold Shift and go around. That's probably the easiest way for us right now. There are other ways to select, but we'll just do this. X faces. I don't need them. Another thing I want to do is I want to bevel this, because this comes straight out and straight down. It's a 90-degree angle. We don't want that. 2 for edge selection, because we're beveling edges. Shift Alt, so it's got to be Shift and Alt, not just that one, or else you'd be going around trying to get all of them. Shift and Alt and click there and there. Okay, the 2 front edges. And I'm going to press Control B, hold Shift and pull, and I'm probably okay with the 2. Instead of rolling my mouse up, there's 3 segments. You can do that, but I'm going to try 2. A to select everything now, and let's try positioning this. Drag it back, deselect, and there's my piece. Now, Is it thick enough? That's something that you would have to decide. When you did the E and Alt S, you would have to, try it and see if you like the effects. I think that's probably okay for this style of window. All right, now what I want is some spokes. In fact, maybe, yeah, you can always try scaling it out a little bit. All right, that's fine anyhow. All right, I want some spokes. I want one coming up here, and then I want one on the angle and one on another angle. So my 3D cursor is right in the middle. That's fine. I'm going to bring in another plane to do this. Shift-A, mesh planes. I use planes a lot. Rotate X 90 so it's facing us. I'm going to drag it up to here. And I'm going to scale it in the X to make it thin. SX and pull in. And then you decide how thick you want it to be. I want them pretty thin, almost similar to the thickness of this. Maybe SX, maybe we'll go pretty close. Okay. We can scale it in the Z. It doesn't have to be that tall. What it does have to do is it has to go under here like this. I'm just dragging it back. It's going to attach to this piece, and it's got to go onto this flat area and also just onto the top there. So that's actually too long. So what I'm going to do, let's try this. Go into wireframe, Z, choose wireframe, and now I'm in edge selection, as you can see here. Just drag a box around the bottom, pull it up until it's underneath here. Okay, and this one is just projecting up into the top. That's fine as long as it's, let's go back to solid, as long as it's in there. Now let's give this some thickness. So I'm going to take this, actually select it, and I'm going to move it out a little bit here because we're going to extrude back. I'm going to press E to extrude, and I'm just going to gesture in the Y direction. E, and I'm just moving my mouse in the Y direction. I'm going to come back to there, and while it's still selected, we're not going to see that, are we? So let's X faces. Let's go back into object mode and see what we've got. Now this piece actually has a face up at the top and the bottom that we don't need as well. So let's isolate it by pressing the slash key. See the slash key down here. Now I can go into edit mode, 3 for face selection, and select this face and turn it. Shift and select that face, X faces. Go back into object mode, and slash key will bring it back. So if you select it, slash key hides everything else, slash key brings it all back. So that's looking good, except I want to have a bevel on these edges. So I'm going to select it, 2 for edge selection. You're always going back and forth between these. Select this edge, hold shift, select this one, control B to bevel. So you'll be beveling a lot. Now I haven't used the bevel modifier, which can be done as well, but we're just beveling it by hand or manually. So we have that, and that's great. Okay, well, we now have an issue because what I really want to do is I want to rotate this nicely along this kind of curve. And to do that, I'm going to set a pivot position, and I need something very central. So I'm going to choose this, go into edit mode, 3 for face selection, I'll deselect. I'm going to click on this face. This face is very central. In fact, you can see the Z arrow goes right in the middle of this. So if I set this with my 3D cursor, I could kind of use it as like the axle of some wheel, and these are the spokes. And the spoke will come up and it'll rotate around this position. To do that, I select something that is very central, and I press Shift S and bring cursor to selected, this menu option down here. Now my red and white circle is right there. Now I can deselect, I can go back into object mode, and it stays there. This is my pivot point. So imagine spokes of a wheel coming out. If I rotated it with respect to this, all the spokes will come around. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this one, but I want it to know that I'm using this as the pivot point. So I'm going to come up here to these sort of interlocked circles. I'm going to click and choose 3D cursor. My pivot will be the 3D cursor. And watch this. It's brought my gizmo, or my origin of this, down to here. If I now, while I'm looking in orthographic view, if I press R to rotate, it will rotate pretty nicely around this circle. Maybe not perfectly because of what I have set. Let's try something else. Let's see if we select maybe, and go to wireframe, if we select the bottom faces of this, maybe the bottom vertices of this. Let's try it this way. Let's say we set the pivot in the middle of these things with respect to the circle itself. Let's try that. Shift S, cursor to selected. Let's go back into object mode. Let's take that. Let's rotate. No, that seems to work better, doesn't it? So we're now rotating with respect to the circle by selecting these vertices down here and bringing our 3D cursor right in the middle of that. So sometimes you have to experiment with where you want to have your pivot. All right. That still might be a little thick for my liking. I'm not sure. I'm going to SX that, scale in the X. Make it a bit narrow. Okay, anyhow, good enough. So let's take this and we're going to duplicate it. Shift D, left click. So the duplicate is there. Control Z. I'm going to rotate it now, and I think I'm going to rotate it 35 degrees. So I'm going to press R35, and it goes to there. Now, I want another one, so I'm going to duplicate it. Shift D, left click, and I'm going to rotate minus, so R minus 35. And they're perfectly done. Okay? And that's fine. And anything underneath is not going to be seen, and we're doing great. So that is that piece. Now, this has no modifiers except for that on it. And these don't have that. I think we can take all three of these and this one and go Control J to join them together. And now that's one piece. We could actually join them to this as well. I could take this, click on this, Control J. And this will all be like wood stuff. Well, the whole thing will be wood. And we can look at shade smooth. And if we want a bit more definition, we can try adding this modifier again. Weighted normal. You have to search in your Blender version for that. And don't forget to also add auto smooth. Just watch the model. All right. It just clears up any shading problems. Cool. All right. Well, there's only a little bit more to do. Now what I want to do is I want to create some window frames here, and then we'll put some glass in behind it. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to bring in, you guessed it, another plane. But my 3D cursor is in the middle of the model. That's okay. But I need to switch this back to the original mode, which was median point, those interlocking circles. And then we're back to just doing normal Blender. Now what I want to do is I want to create a wooden frame for a window here and for a window here. The 3D cursor is right in the middle. That's fine. I'm on median point. And so I'm going to bring in another plane, mesh, plane, rotate X 90. And I'm going to press G to grab or go. And I'm going to sort of position the corner right in there. Now I'm going to select this edge and I'm going to drag it in. And I want to get these relatively snug and almost perfect. So I'm just grabbing the edges and I'm going to go into wireframe so we can see. I select it again. And you can see this edge is a little bit higher than the other. And the reason I want it kind of perfect is because of the next tool that I'm going to use. I'm going to use the inset. And I'm going to create a border. So I'm going to press I, hold Shift, and pull in a little bit like this. I'm going to select it all again so you can see what I've done. I've created a rectangle inside. And I want to select this face and delete it so that this outside is left. So I'm going to go to Face Selection, select that face only. I'll go back into Solid View, X Faces. Now, I want to make sure that this frame looks relatively even because sometimes you'll do this and it'll be a little bit over there, but I think it looks pretty good. So I'm going to go with that. But I want to give it some thickness, so I'm just turning on the side and I'm going to extrude back. E, pull back a little ways. Don't make it too thick. Something like that. And let's get rid of those back faces. X faces. So here's what I have back in object mode. Now this can come forward a little bit and actually, yeah, that's all right. The position, you decide where you want this to go. If you want it to be underneath there or somewhere like that, I think it's okay. And it's okay to even have a little bit of a gap. Sometimes that looks kind of good. The only thing is this is very flat and sharp, and so I think I'm going to bevel this. So I'm going to come in, deselect, 2 for edge selection. I'm going to Shift Alt and click this edge. I want to bevel that. And I also want to bevel this. Shift Alt and click that outer edge, because you can see it here. So with those selected, I'm going to press Control B, hold Shift and pull, and give myself something like this. And now it's again, it's fitting the model of this. That's good enough. We could go back in and grab each of these edges. I'm holding Shift and Alt, and we could bevel them again. And you can do fancier designs. Control B, let's just try it. Split it just a little bit to make it a little bit sharper. I don't know if that's overkill or not, but I've done it, so we'll leave it like that. Okay. So far, so good. Okay. So we need to do some more work on this. There's some more stuff I want. And I think what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to use a piece of this. No, maybe I'm not. All right. So to add more detail to this, in edit mode, I'm going to select it all by pressing A. And I'm going to bring my 3D cursor right to the middle of this because I'm going to bring a new object in. Shift S, cursor selected, go back into object mode. Now my 3D cursor is right in the middle. So if I bring in an object, it's going to go right into the middle. Shift A, mesh, plane, yet again. Go into edit mode, rotate X 90. Scale in the Z. I want these nice and thin. I'm going to move it up. And I'm going to go even a little thinner. SZ, a little bit thinner. And now I'm going to take this and I'm going to scale it in the X until it's just under, let's just see there, and it's just under the frame. Okay. I'm going to give this a little bit of thickness. E to extrude, pull back. I don't need it too thick. I want it connected to this piece. X faces to get rid of that face. And you may have guessed there are faces in here we can delete. So slash key to isolate this. Come in here, 3 for face selection and select that face. And select that face. X faces. Now I want to bevel these edges. 2 for edge selection, select this one and this one. Control B and split it. That's good enough. I'm not going to do any more on that. So we have a little cross piece there. And I want to have the same cross piece down here. And that's why I brought my 3D cursor in there. We can mirror across this. Now, if I select this, and if my gizmo is right on this, if my gizmo happened to be somewhere else, I couldn't mirror this way. But I'm going to select the wrench, add modifier, and then search for mirror. And we want to choose Z and uncheck X. We want it mirrored across the Z. So we have this. Good. We're almost done this side. I'm going to do another design on here. So I'm going to duplicate this. Shift D. And I want to rotate this. Rotate Y 90. And I get this vertical situation going on here. Now what I'm going to do is go into edit mode and pull these in. You can see them coming close now. They were hidden before. And then I'm going to scale in the Z and pull them up until they're underneath, like that. The only thing I don't like is they're at the exact same height as this one, so I'm going to pull this back a little bit. See the way it's back underneath now? And that's the design. Okay. I want to join this window stuff up so I can mirror this entire window over to the other side. So I'm going to apply the mirrors here. Apply. And this one, apply. And now I can hold Shift and click on that one and Control J to join them. This one has no modifiers on, so I can select this stuff, Control J to join that. All right. So we now have this mirror, or we now have this window. I want to mirror that to the other side, so we have to choose something central, like go into edit mode, 3 for face selection, and select that piece. Look from 1 orthographic. That's right in the middle. So let's mirror across this. Shift S, cursor to selected. Bring your 3D cursor there and go back to object mode. So my 3D cursor is there. That means we can mirror across it. Select this window. Now, you'll notice my gizmo is right in the middle of this window, and it's not on here. So if I go to the mirror in the X, it's not working. I need to set the origin of this to the 3D cursor. And what we do is, if your mirror ever doesn't work, just try this. Object, set origin to the 3D cursor. And now it worked. The origin is 3D cursor, so we can mirror across that. It was sort of mirroring on top of itself. So we have that. I'm going to take that, I'm going to apply that mirror. And we have that as one real object. So I've got that, and I've got that, and I've got those. Okay, we don't have to join anymore. You just want to decide where you want those windows. I think that's okay. The last thing that we need to do is to add some glass to this, and to get the correct shape, let's just steal another circle or another arch. Shift Alt and click one of these edges. I'm in edge selection. Shift D to duplicate it. I'm going to just pull it way back there. Let's break it out. P, break it out. Go into edit mode and just go F to make a face. Now I can pull that in as a piece of glass and just figure out where I want that to be. I don't want it, to be in front of anything. What if I just put it there, let's say, or something like that? The only question is everything facing the right way? Well, hold on, we got some red stuff in there. So let's select these, go into edit mode, Alt-N, recalculate outside. That's blue now. Now select these windows, go into edit mode, Alt-N, recalculate outside. The only thing left is the glass. And because the glass is just 1 poly thick, we're going to have to select it and then go Alt-N. And instead of recalculate outside, that does nothing, just flip it. Now it's facing the right way. Turn that off. We are basically done. I'm going to do something here. I'm going to change the screen to both, and I'm going to bring up this and this and this, and that'll give us sort of some ambient occlusion and shadow, and it may convince me to move GY to move the glass up further a little bit. And I might even want to move all of this stuff up further. I'm going to try GY a little bit closer to the front, and then the glass, GY up a little further. Yeah, you can play with this till the cows come home. I like that. I think that looks good. All right, so let's put some color on this in the viewport display, and we're pretty much done. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to switch this to matte cap. I'm going to choose a nice bright matte cap like this one. Now, I did all this in my previous window videos, actually in the second one. So if you haven't seen that, I'll leave a link in the description. So I'm going to select here, and I'm going to come down to Object Properties, scroll down to where it says Viewport Display, and choose a color. And we're not seeing anything because we need to switch this from Material to Object. Now we have that. I'll go with that color, so I'm going to select it, come to the hex, select it, and Control-C to copy it, and then take that and just paste it on that one. So that's that color. I'm going to do this one, all the same. That might not be great colors, but we do something like that. And the glass is a separate object. I'm going to change that to maybe a bluish color, and I'm going to drag this A for alpha down, 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 and that's actually making it somewhat see-through. It's somewhat transparent like glass. And there you go. And you can try out different matte caps at this point and see if one gives you an effect that you like better, or a color that you like better. We're not really applying materials. We're just looking in the viewport display. So these are not really windows that open at this point. There's no real handle on them. But This is what it looks like. You certainly could put a handle. If you thought that the frame was too thick, you could make it thinner. You can do all kinds of things that you want to do, but I just wanted to show you a technique for making an arched window. All right, so I'm going to leave it at that. Hopefully that's helpful. I explained it okay to you. Good luck if you decide to model this. I'd love to hear how it goes. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comment section. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification icon so that you know when I'm doing videos. These are somewhat beginner videos, but I often do long series, if you don't know that already. Apocalyptic things, sci-fi things, and maybe you could learn something or maybe get some inspiration to do your own thing. So thanks so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. Good luck, and see you next time.